Midday heat in the scorching noon of the city's southern slums. The cracked ground steamed with heat, the air thick with the stench of trash, exhaust fumes, and burnt oil from a run-down repair shop. Rows of crooked tin-roofed houses leaned against each other, weathered and weary, as if barely holding up against time. The paths were a maze of potholes, mud, and narrow alleys, swallowed in shadow. William Everett, 48 years old, a white billionaire with a square-cut face, stepped through the heat in a crisp white shirt and polished black leather shoes. He was with his charity team, surveying the area to sponsor a new redevelopment program for the impoverished neighborhood. A crowd gathered around him, not just for his power, but for the aura of a man who could change an entire city with a single nod. He didn't speak much. His face was cold as marble, his eyes never drifting toward the barefoot children running over the burning ground, nor pausing at the trembling voices of the elderly asking for medicine. Then, just as he was about to step into his luxury car to leave, a sudden impact made him stumble backward. I'm sorry. It's my fault." A small, trembling voice cried out. A skinny black girl, about 10 years old, with tangled curls and bare muddy feet, was carrying a sack far too large for her. Her tiny face was streaked with tears, her shoulders shaking as she began, glancing over her shoulder in fear. From behind came the shouts of angry neighbors. "Filthy black brat. Catch her. She stole my bread and coat." William froze. His eyes followed the girl, now sprinting away from the crowd. And then something small tumbled from her sack, rolling to a stop at his feet. A frayed red thread. Attached to it, a tiny wooden swan, hand-carved, and painted a faded reddish-brown.
Wait a second. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us.
Its paint chipped by time. In that instant it struck him like a blow to the chest. William bent down, picked it up. And then, memories came crashing in. A late afternoon in a small room. He remembered shaping that piece of wood with a pocket knife, fingers sticky with resin and sawdust. He had carved that swan himself, tied it to the red thread he wore on his wrist, and given it to a woman he had once loved more than life itself. Elena. William clenched the thread, eyes wide. The woman he had loved and hated with every fiber of his being for the past 11 years. "Elena," he whispered. But then his eyes snapped back to the girl, who was darting into a dark alley like a gust of wind. In a flash of unthinking instinct, William shouted, "That girl! Stop her! She has something of mine." He didn't care about appearances. He dashed after her, leaving his bodyguards and assistants behind. His $1,000 shoes slipped on the filthy ground. His breath quickened, not just from rage, not just from shock, but from something deeper. A wound reopened. The girl moved like a street mouse, twisting through alley cracks, diving under stairwells, leaping across trash heaps, disappearing between two abandoned buildings. William, tall, clumsy, alien to this world of poverty, struggled. Each step felt more desperate, more suffocating. It wasn't just the girl he was chasing. It was a ghost swallowed by time. "Stop," he shouted, voice breaking. But the girl vanished, swift as a shadow born in darkness. William stopped, fell to his knees. His hands trembled. The same hands that had signed billion-dollar deals and commanded a business empire now clung tightly to a fragile red thread. The necklace, the swan, the only trace left of Elena. The thing she once promised never to take off. "I'll hold on to you," she had whispered. "No matter what happens." Then why? Why was it now in the hands of a dirt-covered child, running like prey? William clenched the thread so tightly, it dug into his palm. Was the girl Elena's child? The child of the man she ran away with? Or had she stolen it? Or was there another truth? One he couldn't bring himself to face. He didn't know. But one thing was certain. The pain of the last decade had never ended. It had only been buried. And now, this tiny necklace was the final key, the one thread that could unravel everything he had once chosen to forget. William looked down at his hand, where the necklace lay, worn, chipped, and silent. But it felt heavy, like a verdict carved by time. He whispered through gritted teeth, to the wind and the drifting garbage, "I have to find you. I need an answer." The girl disappeared for the rest of the afternoon. No one saw her again. But this city was all too familiar with the shadows of invisible children. Children who lived in the cracks, places the wealthy never stepped foot in. They scavenged food from supermarket dumpsters, slept under rusted tin roofs, crawled into abandoned shipping containers at junkyards. No papers, no names, no safety. They were seen as garbage by society, or at least that's what the polished world liked to believe. She was no different. No one knew her name, but her eyes always carried storms. She often showed up at dawn, waiting behind diners for leftover scraps. Her small hands gripped a rotting cloth bag, trembling but practiced, picking moldy pastries, half-crushed bread from the dirt. When caught, she'd be chased away with a broom, sprinting off to the sound of angry shouts. "Thieving brat! Filthy little black rat! They should all be locked up." At night, she curled beneath the awning of a deserted warehouse, lying on flattened cardboard, arms wrapped tightly around a burlap sack of torn clothes, and a small wooden box. Inside that box was the necklace, the one that had fallen into William Everett's hands that very morning. In another world, just a few blocks away, up in a windswept high-rise office, William Everett sat quietly by the window, gazing down at a sea of rusted roofs. He had already issued orders. The Foundation's security teams, route surveillance, even the city sanitation network had been mobilized. "Find that girl," he told his assistant. "I don't care how long it takes." Then he leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. Memories returned, scraps of a life before he was Everett the billionaire, when he was just a college student selling hand-pressed juice on a Brooklyn street corner. Back then, Elena had appeared like the first sunlight of spring. Her skin was deep brown, her frame slender, her voice like wind through an open window, soft, warm, and kind. She studied social work and worked part-time at a dusty corner bookstore. She read old novels, spoke through her eyes, and could make him laugh even when he had nothing. Elena believed in him. She was the first to invest $3,000 to help him open his raw juice startup. She found him a small space to rent, managed his budget on notebook margins, and made porridge for him when he passed out after a night spent inside an industrial freezer, testing the new machine. They loved each other, quietly, but with a depth that reached the roots of hope. Then one day, she was gone. The company's account was emptied. No letter, no message, no calls. His family, especially his brother, who had always disapproved of his relationship with a black woman, presented the evidence. Surveillance footage showed Elena entering the bank, withdrawing money, then getting into a car with a man they didn't recognize. Transaction logs, hotel stays, neighbor testimony. It all pointed to betrayal. At first, William refused to believe it. But then, no one could find her. No explanation ever came, and the pain hardened into stone. A soft part of him was torn apart. What remained turned to ice. He built his empire on those ruins, and swore, never trust again, never let anyone that close to his heart again. For over a decade he had quietly sent people to search for Elena, not for forgiveness, but for closure. Yet she vanished like vapor. No trace, no photo, nothing. And now, this old necklace, tarnished, faded, was all that remained. William furrowed his brow. That girl, who is she? Just a homeless child who happened to find the necklace? Or Elena's daughter, born from the man she supposedly ran away with? Or could it be? Whatever the truth, she must know something. At the very least, where Elena once lived. Maybe where she still is. William clenched the red thread in his hand. The old rage still simmered beneath his skin. But strangely, alongside the anger was something softer. A pull, a whisper. He needed to see Elena again. Not to accuse her, but to end this. To end the years of longing, of hate, of doubt. To silence the voice inside him that turned away whenever he saw a mother holding her child on the street. or whenever he glimpsed a woman whose eyes reminded him of Elena. And for the first time in years, William Everett understood a simple truth. The deepest root of hatred is the ache to finally let it go. 3 days, 4 nights. More than 20 security cameras were reviewed. 3 search teams scouring the alleys. William Everett moved like a man possessed. His staff had never seen him like this, walking personally into crumbling neighborhoods, stepping over cracked pavement, his Italian silk cuffs stained with sewage. But he didn't care. His eyes were wide, wild, as if catching just a glimpse of that girl would finally shatter the invisible chains he'd worn for over a decade. And then, early on the 5th morning, he found her in an abandoned warehouse, curled in the far corner beneath walls, peeling like diseased skin. She sat hunched, clutching a piece of bread no larger than his palm, smeared with thick peanut butter. She ate as if every bite was a war for survival. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her collar was torn, her small face, streaked with mud, still held the stubborn pride of a child who had never been protected. William stepped in slowly, like walking into a living memory. "That necklace," he said, voice low. The girl flinched, lifting her head. The moment she saw him, she recoiled, clutching her bread, inching back like a cornered animal. "That necklace," William repeated, his voice hoarse. "Where did you get it? Who gave it to you?" But before she could answer, a soft gasp escaped her lips. Her face turned pale. Her eyes rolled back. The bread fell from her hands. William froze. The girl collapsed, her body convulsing. Her lips turned blue, her fingers clenched into claws. Anaphylaxis. In a flash, William saw himself as a boy, 8 years old, hospitalized after accidentally eating candy with peanut coating. The exact same reaction. He lunged forward, lifting her in his arms, and bellowed to his driver, "Hospital! Call emergency, now!" Hospitals weren't foreign to William, but today he felt small, dwarfed by white walls, fluorescent lights, and the staccato clatter of medical shoes on cold tile. In the ER, the girl lay unconscious, breathing through an oxygen mask. William sat outside, still clutching the chipped wooden necklace. A doctor approached. Calm, professional. "Severe allergic reaction. We've administered epinephrine and fluids. She'll be okay." William nodded slightly. "I need to know her blood type." The doctor frowned. "We tested. AB negative. Very rare." "Why?" William didn't answer. His heart felt stretched to its limits. He walked to the administrative desk, handing over a single hair he'd found clinging to the girl's jacket. "I want a DNA test." The result came back quickly, sealed in a white envelope. He tore it open. Result: biological match. Confirmed. Paternal relationship. William stood frozen. His heart, shriveled for years with hatred, was now struck as if by a hammer. This girl, the one who choked on stale bread and peanut butter, was his daughter. He walked out of the hospital corridor, like a man returning from the dead. Dust clung to his skin. The sun revealed every wrinkle near his eyes. Each line a year lived in bitter misunderstanding. He returned to her room. She was still asleep. William sat beside her, his fingers gently brushing the wooden swan that hung around her neck, the last fragment of Elena. His voice cracked in the silence. "You are my flesh and blood?" He closed his eyes. The memories came together at last. He remembered Elena had tried to call him once. A missed call from an unknown number over 10 years ago. He never called back. He remembered his brother Jonathan Everett had rushed to him that same day, claiming Elena had betrayed him. He presented surveillance footage of her withdrawing money, boarding a car with another man, bank logs, airport clips, neighbor gossip, all pointing to betrayal. Jonathan, the man William trusted most, the man who helped build the company with him. William had once shouted in his mind, "Why do you care so much about my personal life?" Jonathan had calmly answered, "I just don't want to see you hurt." Now William saw the truth. Jonathan had lied. All because of one reason. Elena wasn't worthy. She didn't fit the Everett legacy. A black woman, from modest roots, was a stain in Jonathan's eyes. But Elena, already pregnant at the time, had never gotten the chance to tell William. Jonathan had found out first and forced her out of his life through manipulation and slander. Despite having no money, no status, no support, Elena chose to keep the baby. She gave birth alone without hospital care, helped only by a midwife in the slums. She scrubbed floors, washed dishes, just to keep her daughter alive. Then came the illness. No insurance, no hospital bed, no one beside her. She passed quietly, leaving her daughter with one thing, the red thread necklace with the hand-carved wooden swan William had made so long ago. If you cannot be with her, let her carry the one thing you once touched with love. The child grew up without a name, without papers, without a face to call father. Maybe Elena once whispered her name while rocking her to sleep, but after her death, no one called her by it again, and as years passed, even the girl forgot what she was once called. She lived like a shadow, hiding in corners, under leaking tin roofs, scavenging to survive. She knew she was allergic to peanut butter, had nearly suffocated before, but when hunger gnaws at your ribs, survival trumps safety. She roamed landfills and drainage tunnels, called thief, trash, filthy black girl. Each time she was chased from shelter, she just lowered her head and moved on, because no one had ever taught her to fight back, because to her the world had never felt like home. And William, once so high above it all, now crumpled to the ground in anguish. It had all been a lie, a single, malicious lie from a brother who couldn't stand the idea of Elena being family. And that lie had destroyed 3 lives. William clutched his head, shaking. He had hated Elena. I wanted her to suffer. Now, all he wanted was to suffer in her place. His daughter, his own blood, had grown up in filth, allergic and alone. She'd fainted from starvation, been branded a thief, forgotten what it meant to be loved. And he, perched in his skyscraper, had cursed the only woman who truly loved him, had let her die alone, without a goodbye, without forgiveness. He reached out with trembling hands, gently holding the little girl's hand, and whispered, "I'm sorry," but those words would never reach the person who needed them most. Not Elena, but the child she left behind. 2 weeks later, every media outlet in the city, big and small, received an unexpected invitation. An urgent press conference from William Everett, chairman of the Everett Foundation and CEO of Everett Biotech, to be held in the grand ballroom of the Clarion Grand Hotel. No one knew what it was about. Speculation spread. Was it a new merger, a reform initiative, or perhaps news of his retirement after decades at the top? But when William stepped onto the stage, under a storm of flashing lights, his face showed no pride. He wore a charcoal gray suit, no tie, his silver hair slicked back. The sharp features were still there, but his eyes had softened, like water finally flowing beneath shattered ice. He stood at the podium, hands gently resting on the wooden edge. No script, no aid, only William, the truest version of himself, after more than 10 years lost in denial. He drew a deep breath, then spoke, clearly, slowly. "Many years ago, more than a decade, I believe, I fell in love with a woman who was gentle, strong, and believed in people more than I ever did. But I lost her, not because she left me, but because I believed a lie." The room went completely still. My family, those I loved and trusted, presented forged evidence, convinced me she was a traitor. I let her walk out of my life in silence, and I never knew she was carrying my child. He looked up. His eyes glistened, but no tears fell. "Today, I'm here to say something simple. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not believing her. And I'm sorry my daughter had to grow up without a father." A wave of whispers swept through the hall. William raised his hand. "Let me introduce my daughter. Her name is Amira. It's the name her mother, the only woman I ever truly loved, the one I wanted to marry, once casually mentioned. It means light in Swahili. And indeed, she is the light that pulled me out from a decade of hatred and deceit." The curtain behind the stage opened slowly. A small black girl, thin, her curly hair neatly braided, wearing a simple white dress, stepped out from backstage. She still looked shy, but the fear was gone from her eyes. Her little hand clutched his finger. William bent down, gently placing a restored red thread necklace around Amira's neck. "I once lost your mother," he said quietly, loud enough for the hall to hear, "but I promise I won't let you lose anything else." The room rose in unison. Applause thundered through the hall, not because a successful man had claimed his daughter, but because a man had dared to confront his greatest mistake and stepped through it with honesty. William Everett filed a lawsuit against his own brother Jonathan Everett, along with the two family lawyers who had helped forge the documents. The news exploded across media platforms. Reporters called it an unprecedented civil war inside one of the city's most powerful families. The Everett family split. Half accused William of breaking family unity, saying what's done is done. The other half stayed silent because they knew the truth can never stay buried forever. Courts reopened the 2013 financial archives. Multiple assets under Jonathan's name were frozen. William declared, "I will not let my daughter grow up in a family where lies are painted as honor." He also announced a complete reallocation of his fortune. A large portion would fund a new Elena Scholarship Foundation, dedicated to helping single mothers and homeless children gain access to education and health care. Amira moved in with William to a quiet villa nestled near the hills, a place Elena once dreamed of living. Her new room had a wide window overlooking a lavender garden, a shelf full of books, and the red thread necklace preserved in a glass case beside her bed. At first, she struggled. She still flinched at the sound of doors opening, still clung to her old canvas sack at night, still ate quickly, as if the next meal might disappear. But William didn't rush her. He learned to listen. He sat beside her each night, reading a chapter from a book. He held her hand on walks through the park. He didn't apologize with gifts, but with time, patience, and the quiet, earnest love of a father trying to catch up. One morning, Amira made pancakes for him by herself. She left him a messy crayon note on the table. "Thank you, Dad." He didn't cry, but he held her tightly. Then, one ordinary day, while William was watering the garden, Amira ran up and tugged his sleeve. "Dad, I want to know what my mom looked like." William took her into his study. He unlocked a drawer that had been sealed for over a decade. From it, he took out a weathered photo frame. Elena, smiling softly, her eyes deep as a summer night, appeared again. Amira stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "I want to be like her, strong and able to forgive." William nodded. "And you are everything your mother ever dreamed of." He knew Elena was gone, but half of her remained in Amira, and he would spend the rest of his life protecting that light in every way he could. Some losses can never be undone, but the truth, even when late, is the only thing that can truly heal. William Everett had lived a life of success, but his heart had rotted in silence, eaten away by misplaced hatred. Only when he faced his daughter raised in filth, hunger, and loneliness did he finally understand. Love cannot survive without truth, and honor means nothing without the courage to admit when you're wrong. Elena died in injustice, but the light she left behind, Amira, guided William back to the humanity he'd long abandoned. In the end, what makes a father is not biology, but the willingness to kneel, make amends, and love with whatever time remains. Because sometimes redemption is the bravest way to begin again.